Everything just fell perfectly into place for the Toronto Blue Jays as a brand new report has dropped surrounding one player in particular that changes a lot about not only the Toronto Blue Jays trade deadline plans, but one interesting tidbit in particular surrounding the Jays plans going forward. We're going to break down exactly what that report is, discuss what it means, and how everything fell perfectly into place surrounding the Jays and this one particular player. But not only that, folks, we have some big updates regarding some never seen before renovations happening to the Rogers Center. You're going to want to stay tuned to the end for that, as well as a few other updates ahead of the regular season getting back underway following the All-Star break on Friday, just one day away, which is tomorrow. But before we get into it all, folks, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support has been absolutely unbelievable. You've been absolute beasts, so make sure to smash that subscribe button, folks. Let's dive right into it. Now, everything fell perfectly into place surrounding one particular player, and let's just not waste any more time. A brand new report is dropped from the New York Times and Will Salmon saying the free agent David Robertson could be an option for teams seeking bullpen help. And I've been clamoring for this guy for a while on this channel, and folks, it's finally happening after what seemed to be a very long time, in the offseason, about teams being linked to David Robertson following a really good year. Now, as the deadline approaches, according to multiple reports here, folks, he is now available for teams seeking bullpen help. An alternative option to the trade market lingers in free agency. Veteran right-hander David Robertson is now throwing for interested clubs. Several teams, including the two New York teams, have looked recently, and multiple teams expect to attend one of his throwing sessions within the next week. I assume the Jays are going to be one of those teams. But folks, this is very notable because as the trade deadline approaches, the Jays are in need of a high leverage arm. Now, of course, David Robertson is a guy who hasn't pitched all season for a major league club, but if you're at the Jays and you have an opportunity to improve your bullpen without having to give up assets, boy, oh boy, does it make a lot of sense. Now, you're going to see this and you're going to think that, I'm crazy. 40 years old, hasn't played since September, but he's still very, very good. Last season with the Rangers, he continues to defy concerns over his age with another productive season. 72 innings, 3 ERA, 99 strikeouts. I mean, he's been dominant for the past few years. And the best part about this particular, acquisition and free agency is that you wouldn't have to give up any pieces. And the Jays have been long linked to him, as have the other New York Yankees teams. And you can see this here from Rob Wong, a Jays writer. Don't know if the Jays are one of the teams planning to see David Robertson. I would imagine they are, but he would be an awesome late inning relief addition for just money. And that's the biggest thing. Of course, you'd obviously want them to go out, and I had a video on Mason Miller yesterday, and go ahead and find a perfect piece for this team, and obviously find a perfect ability here for the Toronto Blue Jays to specifically look into a bunch of different relievers. Again, Mason Miller's been on the list, and now David Robertson has become available. Things are starting to line up for the Toronto Blue Jays, and they will be making trades. They have trade assets to trade away, but anytime you can get an extremely valuable reliever for just cash, you absolutely do it. Like Rob Wong said here, this is something you do if he's available 10 times out of 10. And we know how interested the Jays are in, a lot of different ways. We have Ben Nichols and Smith, which we'll dive into later. But Ben Nichols and Smith come out and say the Jays are, going all in. You have a bunch of reports coming out saying that not only are the Jays going all in, they're really trying to find pieces that make sense for this team. And guess what, folks? David Robertson is right there. Let's look into his stats a little bit here. Last year with the Rangers, 3 ERA in 68 appearances. And for a Jays team and their bullpen that has been absolutely decimated with injuries, this season and into the offseason a little bit with Eric Swanson. But Swanson, of course, now DFA'd. Jimmy Garcia, injured. Nick Sandlin, injured. We've seen some injuries float around to, of course, non-relievers. But your two key relievers, especially, your second best reliever, arguably at times your best reliever in Jimmy Garcia, he has been injured most of the year, and that's been brutal. Nick Sandlin, a guy who's been extremely reliable, he's been injured most of the year. Ryan Burr, a guy who the Jays have a lot of faith in, injured most of, and if not all of, this year. So to bring a guy who put up a 1.7 WAR, win above replacement last year, bring it on. Yes, he's 39 years old. Yes, he might not be the, the best option, but for free, folks, I mean, all day, every day for me personally. And you can still add, of course, to the bullpen. This can just be a guy to replace some of the Robinson Pinas and the Tommy Nances of the world. Someone who can give you some veteran experience, some winning experience. He's played on a lot of different teams. I think it would be a perfect addition. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. At the end of the day, things fell perfectly into place here. He's finally trying to play. The Jays were linked to him in the offseason. It seems, and some reports came out, at the time a few months ago, that he was seeking a $12 million, per year deal or something crazy like that. The Jays obviously wouldn't want to give him that money, but for the money that he's going to command, I think it would make a ton of sense, especially because you don't have to give away any assets. And you look at some of the reports that have continued to come out. In case you missed a video yesterday, I'll rehash a little bit here. You have to be in on everything and see what you can do. Certain teams are going to like your prospects more than others, but you need to add starting pitching depth. But you absolutely need a relief depth option too. And in the relief depth position, I guess, like I mentioned, Mason Miller, is he going to be available? That's a big question. Teams like the Guardians, Emmanuel Clase, is he going to, eventually become available? There's a lot of different guys, but also like the lower echelon of relievers. We've covered a lot of them here on the channel. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. And we know the Jays are going to be as aggressive as any at this year's trade deadline. And that's what makes this deadline so interesting, because this, player David Robertson, this has a direct correlation to their deadline plans. If they're able to get him for just money, you can then save some of your assets, and maybe you go more all in for a starting pitcher, or more all in for even more relief. Or if you're happy with your bullpen after David Robertson, then you go after, of course, a bat maybe. And of course, you still need a starting pitcher, but you save assets elsewhere. And there's still a couple of weeks left till the trade deadline, July 31st. If they somehow get this done sooner, and they can sooner or later, and they're confident with, like this report says, at the actual, I guess the pitching meetup, whatever you want to call it, where he's, was throwing sessions, the pitching session, the team's confident in his velocity, confident in his ability, maybe they pivot to another option. So it's going to be interesting, especially with all these reports, right? Jay's all in. They have to add everywhere. I also think they need to add a bat. Like, I'm very adamant about adding a bat. Most teams that go deep into the playoffs have an extremely good offense. And the Jays, is their offense extremely good? Questionable, right? I think it's really, really good at times. I still think there's room for improvement there. You're getting Dalton Varsho back. You're going to get Anthony Santander back at some point, for better or for worse. So it's going to be interesting. And let me know down below what your thoughts are. But speaking of interesting, is something that went under the radar in this little bit of an all-star break. And of course, this is the last day. The Jays play tomorrow. They haven't played in a while. It feels like it's been forever since Jays baseball. And of course, coming off of losing, a series against the Athletics. Unfortunate. But Chad Vitti dropped a piece here, and the Jays, the arena is getting a renovation. The Blue Jays completed a $400 million renovation over the 2 stages in the last 2 years and are eyeing a 3rd stage this winter focused on the 200 level. They've also been lobbying behind the scenes to land one of the 2 All-Star games, and Manfred said he intends to award before he retires as commissioner in 2029. So a few different things here. Obviously, the Rogers Center, it's better now than it was before. There's still some work to do, of course, but very good news here. They're going to try to get an All-Star game. And of course, Rob Manfred wants to give the Jays an All-Star game after the new renovations. I think that was kind of one of the whole things with the Mark Shapiro, renovations here. He wants to get an All-Star game, which makes sense. But not only that, they're going for another set of renovations, which no one has been talking about, in the 200 level, which is interesting because when I go to games, I love to sit the 200 level. It's probably my favorite spot. And to get more renovations there, it's all good things. And hopefully this team can continue to spend. But also, this can mean that, Shapiro's due for an extension here. He's in the last year of his contract. And clearly, if they're doing more renovations, that means that he's staying behind the scenes. You would assume, unless you're going to give that to someone else. But folks, let me know down below what your thoughts are on all this. Lots of new reports, lots of new updates, and we'll keep you up to date every step of the way.